It's devastation reminiscent of a war, destruction no community should have to deal with, and what you're looking at is not a scene out of a horror movie. It's life during fire season in California in 2021. What was once the small, thriving community of Greenville tonight is no more, leveled by flames, reduced to rubble. This is just the beginning of peak fire season, and on top of that, the West is also in the middle of an extreme drought fueled by climate change. Tonight, another new fast-moving wildfire threatening a city near Sacramento. Thousands of residents now under evacuation orders. We're on the front lines tonight. Dr. Fauci's dire warning about the Delta variant. If community spread doesn't get under control, the U.S. may sooner or later get another variant. That one could be even worse. 7 states with fewer vaccinations fueling the spread. We are in Florida tonight, where there's battles over vaccine and mask mandates. One young student pushing her school to require masks.
I'm so worried that if masks are not required, my brother could go to school one day and the next be dying in the hospital.
What's next for New York Governor Andrew Cuomo? Tonight, the impeachment investigation nearly complete, the soonest the governor could be impeached, and the new fallout tonight from the state investigation that found he sexually harassed 11 women. A fight for survival in coal country tonight. The 4-month-long strike in a deep red state. Workers speaking up, saying enough is enough. Our in-depth report.
How difficult was it for you to make that decision to say, I have to go on strike?
It wasn't a difficult decision to go on strike because we knew that we had to fight for what we deserved. We wanted the dignity back in our job.
And tonight, New York is literally buzzing with bees. The pandemic-fueled hive obsession taking off. But are all these honeybees helping or hurting the environment? Our Ginger Z has this week's It's Not Too Late.
I'm going to beekeep up.
Good evening, I'm Trevor Alton for Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin tonight with reports of the FDA taking major action to potentially help the most vulnerable get a boost in protection, as across much of the country, the Delta variant rages out of control. A new report tonight says the FDA's booster shot plan could be ready in a matter of weeks, and those shots would first go to people who are immunocompromised. Now, this news comes as the vaccination rate does appear to be turning around. 864,000 doses administered just yesterday. That's the most in a single day in more than a month. And the surge in vaccinations might be a sign the dire messaging from officials like Dr. Anthony Fauci might be working. Fauci saying today, while the Delta variant is already a problem, if community spread doesn't get under control, we may sooner or later get another variant. And there's growing concern for children who are too young to be vaccinated, as the debate over masks at school is getting even more heated. In a moment, we'll talk with a student urging her Jacksonville school district to issue a mask mandate. But first, with Florida treating more hospitalized COVID patients than ever before, ABC's Victor Oquendo leads us off in Miami Beach.
Tonight, federal health officials signaling they will likely recommend booster shots for immunocompromised Americans, reportedly within weeks.
It is extremely important for us to move to get those individuals their boosters. And we are now working on that and will make that be implemented as quickly as possible.
Those first boosters would go to vulnerable people like cancer or transplant patients, or those on medications that suppress the immune system. Today, Moderna saying a booster for its vaccine will likely be needed in the fall. The company reporting its vaccine was 93% effective 6 months later, but that data was crunched before the Delta variant took hold. Tonight, on the front lines of Florida's COVID crisis, hospitals like Memorial Healthcare System pushed to the brink. The state reporting 2,000 new patients in just one day. Teams making room in the hospital cafeteria.
The patients are coming in younger, sicker, and unfortunately, sometimes they are expiring quicker.
Florida has more children hospitalized with confirmed COVID cases than any other state in the country, but the governor today doubling down on his ban of mask mandates in schools.
What are the harmful effects of putting a kindergartner in a mask for 7 hours? Have they talked about the emotional, the academic, the physiological?
President Biden this week criticizing states for banning mask mandates. The governor firing back, saying, "I'm not going anywhere." Our Stephanie Ramos today pressing the White House on DeSantis' comments.
Refer to the president as a power-hungry tyrant. What is your response, or to the governor and the administration's response to the governor.
Today, the White House pointing to Florida's COVID numbers.
That 25% of hospitalizations in the country are in Florida. It is also a fact that the governor has taken steps that are counter to public health recommendations.
Late today, the president asked about the Florida governor.
Governor who?
DeSantis?
In Fort Lauderdale, 17-year-old David Espino, a high school football player, hospitalized for 10 days with COVID, developing pneumonia. He's now at Broward Health.
It's been pretty scary, actually. I wasn't actually able to go to the bathroom without shortness of breath a couple of days ago. It could get to anyone. It gets you if you're 10, if you're 60, it doesn't matter like how old you are.
It comes amid growing concern for the young. The number of children admitted to hospitals with COVID now 3.5 times higher than it was a month ago. David and his mother regret not getting him vaccinated.
I would definitely encourage them to get their kids vaccinated if they're eligible, because now with school starting and, we're here and more than half of the kids here are, due to COVID. And so it's scary.
A lot of parents expressing those same feelings. And Victor Oquendo joins us now from Miami Beach. And Victor, there are still some 90 million eligible Americans who have not yet gotten the shot. And Dr. Anthony Fauci is warning this continued spread could actually lead to a variant that is worse than Delta.
Trevor, Dr. Fauci is saying that without more people getting vaccinated, the virus will keep mutating, and we could end up with a variant that is worse than Delta, that could evade vaccines, making it all the more critical to get more shots into arms now. Trevor?
Victor Oquendo leading us off from Miami Beach. Victor, thank you. And just this past week, the Florida Hospital Association reported COVID-19 hospitalizations in the Jacksonville area had surged 154%. And that is where 12-year-old Lila Hartley will soon start 7th grade. Now, like many kids, Lila is excited to go back to school in person. But like any good big sister, she wants to make sure it's safe for her 10-year-old brother, Will, who is too young to get the vaccine. So Lila decided to write a letter to the Duval County Public School Board about having a mask mandate for students in Northeast Florida schools, even though Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order threatening to pull school district funds if they were to institute a student mask mandate. And Lila joins us now, along with her father, Matt Hartley, and her brother, Will. We thank all three of you for joining us. And Lila, we're going to start with you. I've read your letter. You're a wonderful writer. Can you tell us why you felt the need to write to your school board? I know when I was 12, that would have been the last thing on my mind. So if you could just tell us what led you to make this decision and what the reaction was to your letter.
I wrote this letter because the school board was not requiring masks for the coming school year, which isn't very safe because of, especially right now with the Delta variant, hurting and getting unvaccinated people sick. My brother, Will, is not old enough to get the vaccine, and so aren't so many kids. And I don't want any of them to get sick from a place that may mean so much to them.
I have a question for your dad, Matt. Before we get into the policies and all of that, the start of the school year can be stressful for children already. Students going back to school, they can be nervous, especially when they haven't been in the classroom. How are you feeling as a father, just knowing that your children are nervous about being back together for any reason?
It's heavy on me because I want my kids to be in school. They love it there. They have so many friends and they love learning. I want them to be able to be in person. And so the thought that they're having to worry about whether they're going to catch a virus that is so dangerous, it just feels like anything we can do to ease that will not only make our kids safer, but make them feel comfortable in school.
We know that the school board has changed the wording of their school code so that the default now will be for students to wear masks, but parents can opt out of having their child wear masks. So it's not quite what you were asking for, Lila. Can you just tell us what your reaction is to these changes? Do you think that they still haven't gone far enough?
Well, being able to opt out is, we don't know how many people are going to do that. And if they do, a lot of people do, that could mean that we have more of a risk to get COVID or pass it on to others.
So it's at least progress, definitely. I mean, Lila, I know that when I'm talking with other people my age, we're talking about this virus a lot. When I was 12, I often wasn't thinking about school board decisions or about politics. When you're talking with your friends in school, are you talking about masks? Are you talking about the virus? Is this something you guys are thinking about a lot?
I personally think about it pretty often and make sure that I'm wearing my mask, and a lot my friends are also wearing their mask. But since when I was at school, since we all did that in my friend group, we didn't really worry as much because the Delta variant wasn't bad and wasn't surging cases as badly as it is now.
Sure. And Matt, what's your reaction to the school district allowing parents to opt out and not have their children wear masks in school?
Well, I was glad at first for the move to require masks with only an opt-out available, but we are worried about how many kids might opt out and whether the school board and the superintendent will make the policy clear. We want to make sure that the policy will mean that most people will be masked.
Lila, there's a lot of people all over the country who might see this interview, and a lot of them are going to have different opinions on masks. Is there one point from your letter that you would just like to say to people across the country that you'd like them to remember about this pandemic?
Sure, yes. My brother is 10 years old and can't get vaccinated. I'm so worried that if masks are not required, my brother could go to school one day and the next be dying in the hospital. Masks save lives. That's a fact. People who are vaccinated should wear a mask, and people who are unvaccinated should especially wear a mask. I and many others would feel so much safer if masks were required. And if they were required, less people may contract COVID, and therefore less people will get really sick or die.
Well, I can tell that your language arts and English classes are working, Lila. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Lila Hartley, along with her dad, Matt, her brother, Will. We appreciate all three of you spending your time with us this evening.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And we also want to bring you an update on the unvaccinated man that we spoke with last night who's in a hospital in Tennessee. Travis Campbell has been battling COVID-19 for days. He's worried he might not have much time left, and this is what he told our Lindsay Davis last night.
If I have a day or two left, I don't want to waste my time. I want to help as many people as I can to let them see the real truth, that it's real. And it's only getting stronger and faster. And it's very important. I would rather be covered and protected than if something does happen and I have to worry about repercussions of a vaccine versus being buried in 7 days.
Well, we were able to get an update on Travis today, and thankfully he made it through the night, and he posted this on his Facebook page asking people to comment if they've decided to get vaccinated since watching his videos. And so far, 33 people say they went to get their first dose. 7 more have scheduled an appointment. Travis and his family, of course, remain in our thoughts tonight. And next tonight, to the devastation in California as infernos rage through communities. The Dixie Fire wiping out much of the small town of Greenville. Downtown, the sheriff's office, stores, gas stations, all gone. And another fire tonight is threatening a city near Sacramento. Thousands of residents have been forced to evacuate. Our Will Carr is on the fire lines tonight in California.
Tonight, veteran firefighters, battle-weary and exhausted, are calling these extreme conditions the worst they've ever seen. In the west, strong winds and dry brush acting like jet fuel, fanning multiple fires. North of Sacramento, the river fire ripping through 1,400 acres in just a matter of hours.
So we're all evacuating. Everyone's driving home as fast as they can to get their bag and split.
Destroying at least 50 structures, damaging dozens more.
This fire burned through this area so quickly it destroyed dozens of homes and left residents with little time to get out.
Ron Pucci and his wife losing their home. He tried to stay and fight using a hose and water from his pool, but says the fire raced up the hill like a tornado.
All of a sudden the wind kicked up, blew embers, smoke right in my eyes, and blew the water right back in my face. And next thing I know, there's fire on both sides of me.
Further north, the Dixie Fire, now more than 500 square miles in size, tearing through the town of Greenville. Mandatory evacuations were in place for the town's 800 residents, but some decided to stick it out and narrowly escaped when the fire raced through as winds gusted to nearly 40 miles an hour.
We were all heading out, back out the way we came.
Firefighters forced to retreat, embers flying as they make their way through the smoke and flames. Daybreak revealing the destruction. KXTV's Monica Coleman.
This is what's left of Main Street in Greenville. Behind me is the Sierra Lodge, and to my right is Way Station Bar. All that's recognizable is the front of the structure.
Fire crews say this historic mountain town turned into this apocalyptic hellscape in just a matter of hours. The fire, the largest currently burning in California, may have been sparked by power lines, has been burning now for more than 3 weeks.
Trevor, tonight as authorities are trying to figure out exactly how many properties here have burned, the fire threat is still real. There are red flag warnings tonight and high temperatures into the weekend. Trevor.
Will Carr from yet another fire line tonight. Will, thank you. And next we turn to the chaos at U.S. airports, as for a fifth straight day, Spirit Airlines has canceled hundreds more flights, despite their promises that those staggering cancellation numbers would be going down. ABC's Kaylee Hartung has the latest.
Maria Martinez was stuck in Tampa, Florida for 3 days, trying to get home to Detroit.
We boarded the plane, they deboarded us out of the plane, and then they told us it was canceled.
She's one of thousands of passengers stranded as the fifth consecutive day of disruptions continues for Spirit Airlines.
It's just been a nightmare.
By midday today, more than half the airline's flights were already canceled. The low-cost airline has canceled nearly 1,900 flights since last weekend.
This is for Spirit. Look at all these people.
This passenger in Orlando says she waited in line for 9 hours just to speak to someone.
9 hours. I'm about to cry. 9 hours. I have never seen such customer service before in my life.
Spirit says the problem stemmed from, quote, a series of weather and operational challenges.
And Kaylee Hartung joins us now from LAX. And Kaylee, Spirit had said this situation would improve. Of course, it does not seem like that's happening. What are they telling you tonight on when this is going to get fixed and what passengers should do in the meantime?
Yeah, an improvement, but just barely, Trevor. We just got an update from Spirit Airlines. They tell us they are working around the clock to try to solve this problem, but they warn us to expect at least 40% of their flights to be canceled again tomorrow. Trevor.
Unbelievable. Kaylee Hartung from LAX. Kaylee, thank you. And now to embattled New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. The state assembly is weighing impeachment after that scathing report alleging a pattern of sexual harassment. And now 5 district attorneys are looking at possible criminal investigations, and one accuser plans to file a civil lawsuit. ABC's Ariel Reshef has the details.
Tonight, New York legislators putting Governor Andrew Cuomo on notice as they wrap up their impeachment probe. The state's Judiciary Committee giving Cuomo's counsel another week to turn in additional evidence, noting the assembly will soon consider potential articles of impeachment. The governor under fire for his handling of nursing homes during the pandemic, his book deal, and now those searing allegations of sexual harassment against 11 women. Cuomo maintaining his innocence throughout, but support, even from his closest allies, evaporating.
I began the process of trying to talk him into resignation, seeing that resignation was the best course of action.
And Cuomo now facing an impending civil suit from his first accuser, Lindsey Boylan, who claims he and staff leaked personal information about her after she accused him publicly of harassment, including kissing her on the lips.
There was an entire conspiracy to diminish her and to hurt her credibility.
The state's independent report backing Boylan's claim, but today the governor's lawyers saying the finding was legally and factually wrong. Investigators say a state trooper assigned to the governor's personal security detail also feared retaliation if she reported what she described as a series of flirtatious and creepy encounters with Cuomo.
She was standing holding the door open for the governor. As he passed, he took his open hand and ran it across her stomach from her belly button to the hip where she keeps her gun.
And we're joined by Ariel Reshef. And Ariel, Governor Cuomo's attorneys are responding to that deadline for additional evidence. What are they saying?
Well, Trevor, Cuomo's attorneys and his office say that they will cooperate with the assembly and that they appreciate the opportunity to provide their perspective. Trevor.
Ariel Reshef. Ariel, thank you. Now to some American heroes awarded with gold medals, and they're not Olympians. They're officers with the Capitol Police and D.C. Metro Police who bravely defended Congress during the January 6th attacks. Stephanie Ramos reports.
Tonight, the more than 1,500 officers who responded to the Capitol on January 6 recognized with one of the nation's highest civilian honors. With a number of officers in attendance, President Biden signing a bill awarding Capitol Police and those who protected the Capitol the Congressional Gold Medal.
I know receiving this award is bittersweet. On that day, more than 140 law enforcement officers suffered physical injuries. An untold number suffering emotional toll. 15 of you were hospitalized, and others were lost forever. May their souls rest in peace.
Today's ceremony coming on the heels of harrowing congressional testimony by 4 officers.
I remember thinking there was a very good chance I would be torn apart or shot to death with my own weapon.
What we were subjected that day was like something from a medieval battle.
Earlier this week, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer calling the officers heroes, highlighting their bravery and sacrifice as the measure to award the medal passed unanimously in the Senate.
This is our Olympics. This is our gold medal. And it goes today to the Capitol Police officers and the Metropolitan Police officers and others that protected us that day.
And Stephanie Ramos joins us now. And Steph, the bill specifies these medals should be available to the public. Can you tell us where and why that is?
Definitely, Trevor. So this bill calls for the Treasury Department to make 4 gold medals that will be publicly displayed at the U.S. Capitol Police Headquarters, D.C. Metro Police, the U.S. Capitol, and the Smithsonian. So the president says that when we see these medals, the public should be reminded of those officers who served and currently protect us all. Trevor.
Stephanie Ramos from the White House. Stephanie, thank you. And when we come back, the authorities investigating this piece of video, a woman pulled from her car and beaten by a group of ATV riders. Plus, beekeeping as a hobby has exploded during the pandemic. If you didn't know it, it's really a thing. But is it helping or harming the environment? It's this week's It's Not Too Late. And up next, the months-long coal mining strike that's divided a community in the heart of Alabama. We'll take you there to see the fight for workers' rights. Stay with us. The longtime powerful president of the AFL-CIO has died. Richard Trumka rose from the coal mines of Pennsylvania to preside over one of the world's largest labor organizations, overseeing a federation of more than 12.5 million members. Trumka is being remembered as a, quote, fierce warrior for working people. But over the past few decades, the power of unions has declined dramatically, and that is why a battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community have been pushing for better wages and benefits. They've been on strike now for months. Our Elwin Lopez visited the town to get a first-hand look at this contentious fight for workers' rights and what it says about the modern workforce.
This is the dividing line, nestled at the entrance of the mine. Those who cross it amplifying the discord and animosity in this small community.
Once you've crossed the picket line, I have nothing to say to you.
We will march by the hundreds.
A searing split for these coal miners in Brookwood, Alabama, calling this the fight of their lives. This small town, the latest flashpoint in the battle over workers' rights.
It's proud. One of the things I like to see, and it almost brings tears to your eyes when you see a sea of camouflage marching into an area. It's I don't even know how to say it. It's just a strong sense of pride.
Every union in this country owes something to coal miners.
More than 1,000 workers took off their hard hats and walked off the job back in April. spending the past 4 months on strike, the first one in the area in 4 decades. This after they say the company they work for, Warrior Met Coal, is treating them unfairly. Now they want better benefits. Behind the scenes, coal miner spouses get to work,
The tags pulled out.
sorting clothes and packing supplies for strike families, while their other halves hold the line in front of the mines. Hayden Wright is the local United Mine Workers Auxiliary president. She helps run the pantry, which is supported through donations.
This is the board where you write everything down. Each week it changes.
Yes.
And then you get the items and put them in the bags.
And we do about 200 bags a week. They can come in, they can get clothes if they need them, they can get baby and hygiene products, and they can pick up their pantry bag.
What would you do without Hayden, without your wife?
I don't know. She holds the family together. She holds the strike pantry together. She's been real supportive and strong throughout this whole strike, and I couldn't be prouder of her.
Braxton has been working at the mine for 17 years.
You come from a family of miners. You take a lot of pride in the work that you do. How difficult was it for you to make that decision to say, I have to go on strike?
It wasn't a difficult decision to go on strike because we knew that we had to fight for what we deserved. We wanted the dignity back in our job.
In 2016, Warrior Met Coal took ownership of the mine after the previous company went bankrupt. According to the union, workers took drastic cutbacks in hourly wages, holidays, time off, as well as medical coverage, and lost their pensions, allegedly believing all of those would be restored in the next contract.
We need to, get these people back up to standard, and the contract that was offered was not up to the other coal mines, and the people turned it down.
Chris Laurie says the workers kept the mine afloat for years.
I give you my youth, I've given you my time, I've worked 6 days a week for the last 17 years. You bought a coal mine, you bought an underground coal mine, you knew what the wages were when you bought it. We saved this coal mine. This ain't the first time we've saved it. We've saved it from fires, we've saved it from explosions. We've saved it from a lot of things.
Coal mining is one of the most dangerous professions in the country. In 2001, the number 5 mine in Brookwood exploded, killing 13.
These are the gassiest mines in North America. You have gas, you have water. A lot of the working areas is knee-deep in water. It's a difficult job, not to mention the dust. You have more dust, around the working phase because that's where you're cutting the rock and the coal.
According to the CDC, rates of black lung have more than doubled over the past 15 years. The workers we spoke to say Warrior Met Coal provides them with 80% coverage of medical fees. They used to receive 100%. Add to that, claims of strict time off. Independent labor reporter Kim Kelly has been following the strike for months.
They're only making about $20-some an hour, and they're spending 6 days a week, sometimes 7, underground, 12 hours a day. Their bodies are broken, their lungs are all messed up. Like, their health insurance costs have skyrocketed because of Warrior Met. It's really an egregious situation.
We reached out to Warrior Met Coal for a comment, but the company turned down our request for an interview due to ongoing negotiations, telling ABC News in part it remains committed to reaching an agreement with the United Mine Workers of America, which is apparent through our contract offer that included increases in key contract areas, wages, benefits, and work-life balance. We have and will continue to work with the UMWA to reach a fair and reasonable contract that provides our employees with a competitive package while protecting jobs and ensuring the longevity of the company.
We're on the way to New York. Hey!
As negotiations continue, the workers have taken their fight across the country.
We're in New Jersey.
Just last week, Hayden, along with a group of strikers, traveled more than 1,000 miles to New York City to protest in front of BlackRock, Warrior Met's largest shareholder. BlackRock declined to comment for this report.
We are here to bring the picket, to bring the strike to their front door, because this is affecting our lives, our families, our communities.
Even actress Susan Sarandon showing solidarity with the workers.
So I stand by you one day longer, one day stronger. UMW!
The strike has divided this Alabama community.
All of a sudden, I heard an acceleration of a vehicle, and he hit me on the right side, slinging me forward into his windshield.
Warrior Met told ABC News that it does not condone acts of violence and got a court-ordered injunction limiting the amount of strikers outside the mines to, quote, allow for peaceful ingress and egress to our facilities, as well as maintain public safety. The strain has also been financial. The union pays workers $700 every 2 weeks to hold the line, but it's still not enough.
Everybody's working other jobs, and some guys are cutting grass, some guys are doing different things. Some of them's already got good jobs, electrical jobs and plants and stuff, and we're trying to hold out because we've put so much time here.
But a few workers have gone back to work for the mine.
Has that created some divide here?
Of course, because you can't be in a union. You can't say you're UMWA and that these are your brothers and sisters when you swore an oath that you wouldn't take your brothers and sisters' job, and now you're crossing a picket line.
So there will still be that divide even when an agreement is reached?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I said that we have to watch for each other underground, and if they cross that picket line and betrayed you, who's to say if you're injured they won't walk off and leave you underground?
If you wouldn't leave your brother in the mine, why would you leave him on the line?
As of 2020, only 12.1% of workers were represented by a union. That's half of what it was nearly 40 years ago. And on average, unionized workers earn about 11% more than non-unionized workers.
The reason that we've seen such a big decline in unionization, despite workers' interests in being unionized, has everything to do with massively increased employer aggressiveness against unions.
Eyes are on us for, not just the union workers, but for just workers in general. Because once a company is allowed to do one thing to, one group, all your other companies is going to follow suit. This isn't just our fight here at Warrior Met Coal with the UMWA. This is America's fight for working people everywhere.
This sea of camouflaged workers fueled by the motto, one day longer, making it clear they aren't going anywhere.
What if you don't reach that agreement? How long will this continue to go on, and when will it end?
We'll be here one day longer than the company will. I don't think that we're giving up. We're already planning a toy drive for Christmas.
You're expecting this to go through Christmas?
We don't know when it'll end, but we're going to be ready. That's what your union does. So if we get through Christmas, we'll make sure that our union kids have Christmas.
And into next year, potentially.
If that's what it takes, we'll be here one day longer than them.
Elwin Lopez, ABC News, Brookwood, Alabama.
Our thanks to Elwin. And still ahead here on Prime, the family who mistakenly threw away $25,000. We'll tell you how they got it back. The drastic measures some are reportedly taking when hackers get into their Facebook accounts. And we hear it so many times, this is a once-in-a-100-year weather event. But we keep saying that. So should we change the terminology? We take a look by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day, a seismic shift in the sports world. Lionel Messi is leaving Barcelona. And now to another alarming sign Earth's climate is changing. By now, you've likely seen several examples of so-called 100-year floods. They're now happening so often, though, experts say that term might have to change. Let's take a look by the numbers. A 100-year storm means a rainfall event which statistically has a 1% chance of occurring each year. But experts say lately they've become a lot more likely than that 1%. For example, more than 300 people have died from flash flooding caused by record-breaking rainfall in central China this summer, according to Chinese officials. Well, more than 100 people died last month from flash floods in western Germany and eastern Belgium, where record rain sent floodwaters into the streets, swallowing up cars, homes, even entire villages. One study found by the end of the century, these kinds of once-in-a-century storms could be more than 14 times more frequent across Europe. And we know this is not just an overseas issue. Here in the U.S., floods in the Detroit Detroit area recently knocked out power to nearly 140,000 residents. And finally, $73 billion. That is just one estimate on the total damage that floods have caused over the past 3 decades in the U.S. because of increased rainfall. And that's a cost that is only expected to grow. And we still have a ton more to get to here on Prime. The investigation into a deadly crash near the border as the crossings continue, and the Biden administration's new goals for electric vehicles. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
Vaccination rates are up again, a positive trend, but health experts say there was a 43% increase in the 7-day average of COVID cases fueled by the Delta variant. The White House pushing back on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' threat to pull funding if school districts try to impose mask mandates. The governor responding to the president's call for governors to get out of the way of health workers trying to help. DeSantis calling the president power hungry.
It is factual and it is a fact and data that you all are aware of, that 25% of hospitalizations in the country are in Florida. It is also a fact that the governor has taken steps that are counter to public health recommendations.
A van designed to carry 12 passengers carrying as many as 30 people, most of them believed to be migrants, crashed on a Texas highway. 10 were killed, 20 others transported to hospitals.
We're going to have to investigate it to the full and make contact with the Mexican consulate to confirm there aren't any U.S. citizens involved in there.
Horrific videos sparking an investigation.
A 35-year-old woman pulled from her car in Providence Tuesday night and brutally attacked in the middle of the street. Providence police say it all started at the intersection of Smith and Orm Streets when 10 men on ATVs and dirt bikes came to a full stop, blocking cars from driving through the light for 2 full traffic light cycles. According to the police report, the victim honked her horn before driving off towards Valley Street. That's where the reckless riders cut her off and surrounded her. Several of those men getting off of their bikes, dragging her out of her car, and viciously beating her in the street. To make matters worse, police say an 8-year-old girl was in the car watching the violent attack.
A special city council meeting will be held to address the violence. President Biden has signed an executive order setting a goal that half of all new vehicles sold by 2030 are zero emissions vehicles. The target is to reduce planet warming emissions from the #1 sector contributing to climate change in the U.S. The country's 3 biggest automakers, Ford, GM, and Stellantis, which owns Chrysler, have all endorsed the move, saying that they aim for 40 to 50% of all new vehicles sold by 2030 to be electric.
The question is whether we'll lead or fall behind in the race for the future. It's whether we'll build these vehicles and the batteries that got them to where they are in the United States, here in the United States, or we're going to have to rely on other countries for those batteries.
Well, the president says right now 80% of manufacturing for electric vehicle batteries is done in China. Some Facebook users locked out of their accounts by hackers are so fed up, they've resorted to an expensive and drastic measure. Reports circulating say some have taken to buying the company's Oculus Quest VR headset, which sells for $299. But they don't want the device, they want the phone support that comes with it. It's a risky move that doesn't seem to work for everyone. Facebook's current automated support process can involve uploading a picture of the user's passport, driver's license, and marriage certificate. The company's support page says the delay comes down to a staffing issue from COVID. The best way to prevent such an attack? Set up your 2-factor authentication, which provides a unique code every time you log in. Well, a family has now been reunited with thousands of dollars in cash after they accidentally threw it out in the garbage. The family in Ohio was cleaning out their grandmother's house when she told them to look for an envelope
with, $25,000 inside. Turns out the family had already tossed it out. They called the garbage collection company, and 10 workers jumped into action, combing a 6-ton pile of rubbish.
I told the gals, I said, if it's in there, we'll find it for you, because they were pretty upset. I seen it. I said, man, that looks just like that. Pulled it off, opened it up, and there was the package inside with the money in it. And they were so happy, they were tearing up.
Remarkably, it only took the workers about 10 minutes to find that envelope with the cash inside. And of course, they returned it to the very grateful family.
I hope those workers got tipped. Welcome back. Tonight, New York City is abuzz with bees. Hundreds of hives now dot rooftops throughout the area. But are these imported honeybees serving a key purpose, or are they actually disrupting the ecosystem and the bees, which are critical for our food supply? ABC's chief meteorologist Ginger Z has this week's It's Not Too Late.
I'm Ginger Z, and it's not too late. And yes, I'm almost done with my salad here on a rooftop in Manhattan, but you realize that most of what's in this bowl would not be possible without them.
Bees, key not just in pollinating our flowers, but most importantly, more than a third of the world's food. They make billions of dollars for people while feeding the world, so that's probably why you've heard so much about them dying.
But that's where the real threat can get lost in a swarm of headlines.
U.S. beekeepers lost more than 40% of their colonies between April 2019 and 2020. But the European honeybee, essentially large-scale livestock at this point, is not the only bee that we have to be concerned about.
So yes, the hobby of keeping your own bees certainly been growing, and there seems to be an exponential boom of this happening around the country, and yes, even on rooftops here in Manhattan. But the question then becomes, is it good for native bees?
There's the European honeybee.
So I asked Sarah Kornbluth, a bee biologist with the American Museum of Natural History.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yeah, we got the honeybee and another little critter. Looks like a little fly in there.
How exciting. A friend. It's not that we're all concerned about just the honeybee. The native bee is the problem.
So yeah, I mean, we saw over the past decade or so colony collapse disorder, which was a suite of problems that were affecting the European honeybee. We know it was affecting the honeybee because we manage honeybees, but the effects that the same issues we're having on native bees aren't as well documented. We just can infer about what's happening to native bees. We definitely see declines in the numbers and species of bees in a lot of places.
In New York City alone, there are more than 600 active honeybee hives. But there's also at least 200 native species of bees that are flying around the 5 boroughs, and they may be the ones most in danger. 1 in 4 wild bee species is at risk of extinction in North America. 50% of Midwestern native bee species disappeared in the last century, and 4 of the bumblebee species are down 96%.
What concerns you the most? And we can step up here. For the plight of the bee.
I mean, I really feel like it's just a global issue of biodiversity loss. So I'm focusing on bees and other pollinators, but as we lose biodiversity, we can't get it back.
I'm gonna beekeep up.
This is one of the hundreds of rooftop beehives in New York City. Yes, it is on the 35th floor of a midtown hotel.
Why is rooftop beekeeping something we should do?
Well, it adds pollinators to the air. So we're looking at about 120,000 bees between the 2 boxes. And my hunch is that everybody's rooftop garden and the flowers and any vegetation are going to be doing better in Central Park because of these honeybees. The house bee comes up, fills one of these cells up with nectar.
Eric Cannon used to be a producer at ABC.
Like 80% moisture down to about 18% moisture.
And he gave it up for beekeeping.
You're a producer at ABC, you have all this going on. It has to be really mesmerizing, beekeeping, to take you away.
Yeah, it is. So it gets inside you somehow, and it's very calming, very pleasant.
For those of us that might not be ready to leave our job and dive straight in, there's a service called Best Bees, which is how we met Tom Whitburn. He's a New York City beekeeper that installs and manages beehives on your property.
We're not quite at what he called that tipping point where we have to worry about competing, Italian honeybees with local native pollinators, because there's still plenty of resources that are out there for everybody.
Even in a place like New York City.
Even in a place like New York City, believe it or not, yeah.
Is putting a hive on each rooftop in New York City the answer?
Ooh. New York City isn't a monoculture, and it doesn't require any pollination by European honeybees. As long as we provide plenty of floral resources and nesting habitat for native bees, they will thrive here and they will complete all of the pollination services that we require.
I've definitely never driven one of these.
A few years back, I followed one of the operations that rents out their hives to farmers.
Have a nice ride, bees. Good pollinating to you.
The hordes of European honeybees that get trucked around our nation with about as many stops as a startup rock band. And managed pollinators are still critical today. There's actually a new report out this week that highlighted the crops that are at risk if we don't properly pollinate them. 90% of kiwis, pumpkins, watermelons could be wiped out without the bee.
So if someone here wants to help, probably best thing is just to put plants in that bees thrive on.
I mean, you know what? A lot of the time people want to know what are the best plants for bees, but it's not just bees for the food web.
Pollinators.
And it's not even just pollinators, because it's the entire food web we need to support, and so it's any native plant.
Yeah.
Right? So all of the plants and animals evolve together to be able, and they're constantly fighting this battle to try and eat each other, basically. So it's the plants that evolved here that can be eaten by the plant eaters here. Then those can be eaten by the birds and so on. So really, I'm going to suggest that people plant native plants that are native to our area and that are a wild type, not a horticultural variety.
So the only real way to help for most of us is to plant plants that bees like. Make sure they're native and pesticide free. And then it really won't be too late.
Our thanks to Ginger Z. And next to the heroic 7-year-old who beat cancer and then decided to help others. Our Lindsay Davis brings us this story.
This hero's homecoming is all for 7-year-old Trip Hughes.
It just feels amazing.
After being diagnosed with lymphoma at just 4 years old, this soon-to-be second grader just finished 857 days of cancer treatment and chemotherapy.
All of our friends and family have been asking what they can get him to celebrate.
Trip had an idea based on something he'd noticed before leaving the hospital.
They're running low on toys because they let kids take some of the toys home with them, so we just want to help.
So Trip, along with his mom, asked a few of their friends to pitch in, donate money and toys for Children's Mercy in Kansas City for other children just like Trip.
Hi, TikTok. This is Trip.
Even sharing their mission on TikTok.
I hope you can donate money to my fundraiser.
The donations kept growing and growing, 4,400 toys in all.
I love it. He just went through a really tough time in his life, and his thought was, how can I give back? So I just think that's amazing.
Trip barely containing his excitement when he and Mom made the delivery themselves.
I've got some more carts coming, and
Yeah, you're gonna need 5,000 more.
No, you were right. You were right.
One grateful hospital, community, and little boy.
I just hope this inspires other kids to also do other helpful things.
Just amazing. Our thanks to Lindsay Davis. And before we go tonight, the image of the day, the Belarusian Olympic athlete who's been at the center of an international drama. She sought protection from Tokyo staff, claiming she feared for her life if she was forced to return to her authoritarian nation. Well, she was seen in Poland with that shirt she's holding that reads, "I just want to run." And that's our show for this hour. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks for streaming with us. And coming up in the next hour, it's being described as hell on earth. Our team is on the ground in Greece, another area experiencing horrific wildfires. And our Lindsay Davis sits down with actress Laura Dern, who has a new health initiative she's championing. Stay with us. I'm Trevor Ault. Thanks for streaming with us. We're monitoring several developments here at ABC News at this hour. The Department of Justice is launching a civil rights investigation into the Phoenix Police Department, and the probe will investigate a number of potential violations. This is the third such investigation announced by Attorney General Merrick Garland since his confirmation. One important issue AG Garland wants to address is whether Phoenix police violated the rights of individuals experiencing homelessness. The Consumer Product Safety Commission is recalling 2 million dehumidifiers, saying they're at risk of overheating and catching fire. The recall affects products across 15 brands, including EdgeStar and Danby. The products were all manufactured by Chinese company New Wide Tech and sold at retailers like Costco, Walmart, and Lowe's from 2009 all the way up to 2017. The Federal Aviation Administration is asking U.S. airports to help end the recent spike in unruly passengers by serving less alcohol. Their investigation found aggressive behavior by passengers is often paired with alcohol use, and this comes after flight attendant unions called on the FAA to protect passengers and crew from abusive travelers. The report also urges airport police to arrest more violent or unruly people. Now to the raging wildfire out west. The Dixie Fire grew more than 48,000 acres in a matter of hours overnight, engulfing an entire California town. ABC's Will Carr has the latest.
Tonight, veteran firefighters, battle-weary and exhausted, are calling these extreme conditions the worst they've ever seen. In the west, strong winds and dry brush acting like jet fuel, fanning multiple fires. North of Sacramento, the river fire ripping through 1,400 acres in just a matter of hours.
So we're all evacuating. Everyone's driving home as fast as they can to get their bag and split.
Destroying at least 50 structures, damaging dozens more.
This fire burned through this area so quickly it destroyed dozens of homes and left residents with little time to get out.
Ron Pucci and his wife losing their home. He tried to stay and fight using a hose and water from his pool, but says the fire raced up the hill like a tornado.
All of a sudden the wind kicked up, blew embers, smoke right in my eyes, and blew the water right back in my face. The next thing I know, there's fire on both sides of me.
Further north, the Dixie Fire, now more than 500 square miles in size, tearing through the town of Greenville. Mandatory evacuations were in place for the town's 800 residents, but some decided to stick it out and narrowly escaped when the fire raced through as winds gusted to nearly 40 miles an hour.
We were all heading out, back out the way we came.
Firefighters forced to retreat, embers flying as they make their way through the smoke and flames. Daybreak revealing the destruction. KXTV's Monica Coleman.
This is what's left of Main Street in Greenville. Behind me is the Sierra Lodge, and to my right is Way Station Bar. All that's recognizable is the front of the structure.
Fire crews say this historic mountain town turned into this apocalyptic hellscape in just a matter of hours. The fire, the largest currently burning in California, may have been sparked by power lines, has been burning now for more than 3 weeks.
Our thanks to Will Carr. And while the American West is reeling from wildfires overseas in Europe, coastal communities in Greece and Turkey continue to suffer as well. Inez de la Quatera is in one of those hard-hit Greek towns for us tonight.
The situation here, frankly, chaotic. We are just 30 minutes from downtown Athens, and take a look at this. Fire on every hilltop, smoke everywhere. Everything smells of burnt wood. This behind me, that's the National Road. It would normally be packed with vehicles. It's been blocked off. Residents are being told to stay home. The Prime Minister is also asking residents not to go to wooded areas. They could be fined up to €1,000 if they are caught in rural areas. This is the scene across Greece, not just here in Athens, but in different parts of the country. We were 2 hours from Athens yesterday on the island of Evia, where residents were being told to get to the beach so they could be evacuated on boats. Thousands across the country being evacuated. We saw one man yesterday who had lost everything, his home, his workshop. He told us this was hell for him. He was in a total state of shock and disbelief. And we also were with firefighters earlier today who were trying to stop the flames from reaching the grounds of a royal palace, a former royal palace. Local media reporting they lost that battle and that the flames did reach the grounds and have engulfed the grounds of that palace. The site of the first Olympics was also threatened at one point. The good news there is firefighters were able to get that under control. But think about it, these ruins have been around for thousands of years, and they are now being threatened by these fires. The Greek Prime Minister, he spoke just moments ago. He is making the link to climate change. He's calling these conditions unprecedented. He's saying the night ahead will be long and dangerous, and he's saying the country has turned into a powder keg. And that's because Greece right now is in the middle of its biggest heat wave in 3 decades. At one point, temperatures hit 115 degrees this week, and that is what's making for these really dry conditions, causing these fires to break out and spread rapidly. And that's what we're seeing across the Mediterranean, across Greece, but also in other countries, in Albania and Turkey and Italy. In Turkey, the fires have been especially deadly. Thankfully, here in Greece so far, no lives have been lost. And the Greek Prime Minister is saying that is the priority right now. He's saying buildings can be rebuilt. Explosion right there. I don't know if you heard it, but clearly we've been seeing the sky also at times light up yellow, what we're assuming are explosions. Clearly a grave situation here, and conditions are expected to worsen. Winds are expected to continue through tomorrow. High temperatures also expected to continue through tomorrow. They're expected to dip a little bit this weekend, but are expected to pick back up again next week.
Inez de Lucatera in Greece for us. And now on to the coronavirus. The Delta variant is now accounting for 93% of all new cases, and the CDC projects hospitalizations could triple by the end of the month. Today, health experts doubling down on vaccines, saying the shots are the only way out of this pandemic. ABC's Ike Ejiachi is in Washington with more.
Healthcare workers in Louisiana brought to tears.
To be honest, I probably cry most days at work. And I cry when I go home. I've been doing this for 1.5 years. And it feels like there's never going to be an end.
The state struggling to keep up as it faces its highest number of hospitalizations since the pandemic began. 90% of those hospitalized in the state are unvaccinated. 7 states with some of the country's lowest vaccination rates now account for about half of new cases and hospitalizations in the past week, according to the White House.
We have deployed hundreds of federal personnel to provide in-person support to address a range of needs, from increased testing to getting shots in arms through mobile vaccination clinics.
The White House painting a picture of optimism, pointing to a consecutive 4-week increase in the daily average of newly vaccinated Americans.
Over the past 24 hours, we've recorded 864,000 vaccinations, the highest in a day since July 3rd. And importantly, 585,000 first shots.
Private companies are now looking to help boost those numbers. Yelp rolling out a new feature allowing users to filter businesses that have a fully vaccinated staff, even showing establishments that require proof of vaccination to enter.
If we continue to vaccinate and we get that 93 million people who are eligible for vaccinations who have not been vaccinated, if we do that in the immediate, intermediate, and long term, and do the mitigation right now, we will turn the Delta surge around.
Now, several states that instituted a ban on mask mandates are now walking back their decision. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson expressing regret earlier today for banning his state's mask mandates. Trevor?
Ike Ejiachi, Ike, thank you. And now to Bill Gates, the billionaire breaking his silence on his divorce from ex-wife Melinda and commenting on his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, saying it was a, quote, huge mistake. ABC's Rebecca Jarvis has more.
Bill Gates breaking his silence about the fallout from his divorce with Melinda.
It's definitely a very sad milestone.
Gates telling CNN the couple, who announced the end of their 27-year marriage in May, will take a trial run of working together at their foundation.
We are communicating and working at the foundation, and so that partnership we're going to try and continue.
According to a statement from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, if after 2 years either decides they cannot continue to work together as co-chairs, Melinda French Gates will resign her position as co-chair and trustee. In such a case, Melinda French Gates would receive personal resources from Gates for her philanthropic work. The couple finalized the divorce in court earlier this week, records showing neither will receive spousal support, but they are keeping private the details of their agreement to split their fortune, reportedly worth more than $130 billion, which includes homes in California, Washington, and Florida. According to the Wall Street Journal, it was Bill's relationship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein that may have first pushed Melinda to hire divorce attorneys.
Melinda Gates's divorce lawyers were having multiple calls right around the time that the New York Times published an October 2019 article detailing the extent of Bill Gates's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. We do know that this is a source of concern.
Overnight, Bill Gates downplaying that relationship, calling it a huge mistake.
You know, I had several dinners with him, hoping that what he said about getting billions of philanthropy for global health through contacts that he had might emerge. You know, when it looked like that wasn't a real thing, that relationship ended.
In the weeks following the divorce announcement, Gates faced allegations of improper relationships with employees after the Wall Street Journal reported that a years-long affair with a former Microsoft engineer may have led to the founder parting ways with the company's board in 2020. His representatives acknowledged the affair, saying it ended amicably, but that Bill's decision to transition off the board was in no way related to this matter. Gates was asked if he has any regrets.
Well, certainly I think everyone does, but it's a time of reflection, and at this point I need to go forward. My work is very important to me.
That's Rebecca Jarvis reporting. Next to Chicago and an alleged wrongful raid caught on camera. A family says officers broke down their door and pointed firearms at two small children. They're now suing the Chicago PD, and we want to warn our viewers the footage is difficult to watch. ABC's Alex Perez has the story.
A family in Chicago is suing the city over this mistaken police raid. The terrifying moments back in 2019 caught on officers' body cam video released by the family attorney. The police burst into the apartment of Steve Winters and Regina Evans, guns drawn. According to the lawsuit, police told the family they were responding to calls about suspects nearby who were possibly armed and fled into their building. But those suspects were not in the apartment.
We just started hearing loud bangs. And then my husband got up and went to the door and was trying to what's going on? Who is it? He never understood who was at the door, and our door got kicked in by the police. And then they threw my husband to the ground, put a gun in the back of his head.
Officers can be seen searching room by room and pointing their guns in the direction of Evan's father, who's in bed, and in the direction of the family's two young daughters, 5 and 9 years old, who, according to the lawsuit, were sleeping. A frustrated and horrified Evans calling 911 as the cops went through her home.
They just busted my door, put guns in my face.
The family says they're all still traumatized.
Rishyla is still having nightmares, still can't sleep. She's screaming in her sleep.
In the videos, you can hear officers at one point apologize and offer to repair the damage.
I just want to see what's damaged so I could document it, okay? Give me a paper so you can get your door fixed.
Chicago police, in a statement before the lawsuit was filed, saying the department is committed to treating all individuals with dignity and respect. This incident occurred 3 months prior to the implementation of the department's firearm pointing incidents directive.
That's Alex Perez reporting. And still to come, the founder of Hillsong Church is criminally charged in Australia. We have the details, and how actress Laura Dern ended up teaming up with the American Lung Association. We'll be right back. Good evening, everyone. We're tracking several international headlines at this hour. The founder of the embattled Hillsong Church has been criminally charged in Australia tonight. Pastor Brian Houston has been charged with alleged concealment of child sex offenses. He's accused of concealing his father's child sex abuse in the 70s. Authorities say he later became aware of the abuse and didn't report it. Hillsong Church has denied the charges against its founder. President Biden's administration has approved its first arms sale to Taiwan. The $750 million sale is in line with the Trump administration's policy. The Trump admin sold billions in weapons to Taiwan during their term. The move has irked China, though. Their foreign ministry says in a statement the move severely jeopardizes U.S.-China relations. And the West African nation of Burkina Faso is overjoyed today, winning their first ever medal at the Olympics since they began competing in 1972. Triple jumper Hughes Fabrice Zangos claiming the bronze medal. The president saying on Twitter, "We are all proud of you." Actress Laura Dern is known for her iconic roles in Little Women, Jurassic Park, Big Little Lies, and of course Marriage Story, which won her an Oscar. And now she's taking on a new role as an advisor to the American Lung Association, raising awareness of its vape-free schools initiative to stop the spread of vaping. Earlier today, our Lindsay Davis spoke with Laura Dern along with Dr. Christy Sadramelli, a pediatric pulmonologist.
So, Laura, it's my understanding that you were personally touched within your family by lung cancer. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yes. When I was 6, my grandfather got a diagnosis, and I watched him go through a horrific time, needless to say, and he passed away from lung cancer. And I remember then how terrifying and deadly misinformation was, that he was having a coughing attack. And I remember him lighting up a cigarette and me asking him if he thought that was safe for him. Even in my 6-year-old brain, it didn't make sense. And he said the doctor had said that if he was coughing, that maybe the cigarette would help clear his lungs. Mm-hmm. And that has stayed with me my whole life, wanting to, and thanks to the help of the American Lung Association, wanting to participate in any way I can in service of messaging and education around lung health.
And what made you decide, I'm going to become an ambassador? I'm so dedicated to this cause.
It was a combination, both from my childhood experiences, as well as my mother was very dear friends with the amazing Valerie Harper. And I worked alongside her when American Lung Association launched their Lung Force initiative. And she was so extraordinary in the fact that she wanted to be of such service, even while she was battling her own disease, and ultimately passed away. And then shortly around the same time, I was privileged to play the author Cheryl Strayed's real mother in the film Wild, based on her incredible journey on the Pacific Crest Trail, to heal her grief from losing her mother, who I played, to lung cancer.
And what can you tell me about the vape-free school initiative?
It was me learning that the American Lung Association was doing this, and my own vulnerability as a parent of teens who felt I didn't know enough and had been told it was safer than smoking cigarettes by many adult friends, and starting to hear in the culture of my children's community that they felt that was the safe alternative, that I asked them, can I please learn from you and help spread awareness? And then when I learned that they were not only creating this amazing initiative, that, very quickly with everyone's support and donations, can help impact immediately over 1,000 schools for a back to school initiative, that instead of just giving schools and our educators and ourselves a punitive response to an addiction, being nicotine, that they've been fed through advertisers in their own social media that we've all given them, that perhaps we can actually arm them with education and even a cessation program.
You mentioned that you have 2 teenage children, 19-year-old son, 16-year-old daughter. Being around them and talking to them, have they described that there is this peer pressure and that it's a really popular thing to vape or smoke cigarettes?
Well, 1,000,000%. And they all have spent 1.5 years on Zoom in their rooms, isolated. And they all know they're going back to school after the highest rise in teen and young adult anxiety and depression that we've seen historically. And so now they're going to re-enter school in a space that already, for all of us, as we know, can create social anxiety and need to have approval with peer groups and managing stress.
Dr. Sadramel, I do want to bring you in on that, because I was actually under the expectation, at least, that teens were thinking that the vaping was less dangerous than actual cigarettes. But that's not the case, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it's sort of a fool's errand to compare, because what we're talking about, what Laura was alluding to, is tons of kids addicted to nicotine. The reason people are switching from vaping to traditional cigarettes is because they're already hooked on nicotine. And there's way more teens using nicotine because of the vaping trend, which is like super widespread. We have over 8,000 kids in this country starting to vape every day, and it translates to over 3.5 million who are currently vaping. It's a lot. And, it's not just which one's worse. We know that vaping is harmful to the lungs, and we know that a whole generation and big numbers of kids are getting hooked on nicotine very quickly. So it's all harmful. And the best thing to do would be to prevent all of it, and then to help the teens who already are vaping or hooked on any type of nicotine, help them stop. And there's a whole skill set for that. So that's one thing I like about this program. It provides training and ways to help, not just talk about why it's bad.
You were mentioning some of the statistics. I thought that it was shocking to know 73% increase over the past 4 years, 1 in 5 teenagers now vaping. How young do you find that the kids are starting? That for a parent like me, a 7-year-old son, I'm thinking I don't need to at all get into that messaging, but at what point should parents really think about sitting down and having those conversations?
Yeah, it's a great question. We definitely see, this starting in the middle school age range. I think a good target age is before they've probably tried it. So 10, I know that might sound young, 5th grade, but it's a good time to start talking about it. And we do recommend, we're catching up to this trend. There's so many people vaping. We're trying to prevent, not have these massive numbers of the kids who are now entering 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, getting hooked on it. And we also want to help the kids who are already hooked on it, who are mostly a little bit older.
And so part of this initiative is about educating educators about how to have these conversations and talk to students to dissuade them. What do you say? What should be the words? Because I guess it's not enough, especially as a parent or teacher, to say, that's bad, don't do that.
Right. Well, I did want to say too, and I want to acknowledge, I'm a mom, I'm a pediatrician, and I'm a lung specialist. So I totally understand that, as Laura said, this is a really hard time for our young people, and it's a great time to talk about it. But this program is also about cessation. The techniques and the strategies for cessation, sometimes involving nicotine replacement, behavioral strategies, things like that. That's partly what we're trying to give to the schools.
And not to forget that we are in a lung vulnerable pandemic. This is the most terrifying time that any of us could consider an addiction to nicotine and smoking. So it's really, really concerning. And I think if we work together, it could be very exciting.
And Laura, before we go, if we can, I know Jurassic World Dominion, the 3rd part of the series, is coming out next June. Any kind of little hints that you might be able to give, any little nugget about what we might be able to expect?
Well, spoiler alert, there will be dinosaurs.
Oh, wow.
And there will be dinosaurs no one has ever seen.
Ladies, I thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you talking with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for spreading the message.
Lindsay Davis, always willing to ask the tough questions. And finally tonight, a San Francisco area man had his pickup truck stolen, and his Amazon delivery driver came to the rescue. Our Will Gantz has more.
We've seen Amazon delivery men playing hopscotch. We've seen them busting a move, and now solving crimes.
You never know who's going to have the act of kindness in them and be looking out for somebody else. And the message is higher power, prayer and power, and there are still some good people out here.
Mark Cutlip walked out of his Bay Area home this week to find his brand new truck and trailer were gone. Without them, he can't run his brand new junk removal business.
Called the Vallejo Police Department and called a couple friends to help me put it out on social media.
He and his friends also sharing the information on Facebook. Then, Mark got an Amazon delivery from Henry Martinez Jr.
I showed him a photo of my truck and trailer and asked him to keep a lookout for it, and I gave him my business card.
Just a few hours later, Mark getting a phone call from Henry, who had spotted the truck and trailer just a quarter mile away.
I was ecstatic. I made it to the location in a couple seconds.
Mark saying he considers Henry an angel. The thief did make off with the truck's catalytic converter, but Mark says at least he got the truck and trailer back. He only started his hauling business a few months ago.
I saved every dime so I can get a dump bed trailer and make a legitimate career out of this. And that's the goal. I wouldn't have been able to afford to buy all this again. And I'm so grateful to God and Henry Martinez Jr. from Amazon.
That's Will Gans reporting, and that's our show for tonight. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Trevor Ault. Thanks for streaming with us, and have a great night.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.